Hey guys, unfortunately we had another tragedy. I see the video file from the session today was corrupted and didn't have any audio, so I'm gonna do a little second session recording here and just go over all the most important things we went over today. So sorry about that, it happens sometimes. I'll take better care in the future again. But alright, so quick summary from the session today. We had three big events this weekend. We had Utrecht, Santiago, Melbourne. A couple things that happened there. We had the Dragapult doing really, really well in Utrecht with a couple cards that is worth mentioning. And we had Gardevoir kind of, destroying Melbourne again with Rent getting another win. Also very, very strong. And then in Santiago, we had a little bit more of a spread, but also Gardevoir winning in the end. Also cool to see a couple of Joltik decks quite high up as well. So, most important things went over today. I think I wanted to push a little bit of the Maractus agenda. I think Maractus is just like a really good card in the format right now. So, I currently really want to play it in Dragapult myself. This is my opted Dragapult list with Maractus. I streamlined the supporters a little bit, so I cut down the Jack, added Brox and Research, and with extra Brock, I felt like it was more fair to cut down on the Latias and the Fezandipity as well. Now that there's like a little bit easier to find them. It's kind of like a Nespal replacement. But regardless, just to add the Maractus again. And then the rest more or less stays the same. But I think Maractus just makes a lot of sense in the format right now, as it's not really respected at all. So Maractus will help Dragapult quite a bit against Joltik Box and against Raging Bolt. Those are like the two big ones. It can help a lot against because they don't really have much switching options at all. And if you can stuck something, it gives you time to set up. And sometimes you can almost solo the whole game for you instead. Like if you trap a Latias for forever, put a lot of damage counters on it, then trap Fezandipity a little bit, and then just Phantom Die both off the board. You could even take a 6-prize turn if you really, really want to, if it's needed. So Maractus could be really big. And my current list doesn't run Gensect, so your opponent still has Prime Catcher, but if they get a single prize of Prime Catcher, I still don't think that's a huge deal, like overall. If they Prime Catcher, Maractus also ends up on the bench, so they probably still not killing it. Right, so you can still just push Maractus back in, do another Gust effect, and continue your shenanigans to lock your opponent out of the game again. So as long as people are not really teching against Maractus, I think Maractus will be, a very good tech going forward again. And then for Gardevoir, we mentioned William winning with the TM Evos, right? I think the big perk with Team Evo is that Team Evo is a lot better against Budew again, right? So if you're up against Budew, then you much rather have TM Evos than having to try to rely on Candy Gardevoir. TM Evo is a card you get to play under Budew, and it's a little bit safer that way. But against like non-Budew, you're probably better off with the Candy version and trying to go a little bit faster again. So it's just like a little bit of a meta call, I think. But if you're expecting more Budew wars, then moving over to the TM Evo variant of the deck makes more sense, I think. Currently, with all the placements and results and just the sheer, say, how many more times can I say the same word? Accomplishments. With how many accomplishments this deck has, then I would probably go with this list at the moment. I was pretty between like Zoroark and this in the beginning, but at this point, just play this version. I think it's very, very strong. The William list was relatively similar though. Like I would say this is almost the same deck, but with the Evo, and this is like also fine. It's just a few cards off the list Brent has been playing for so long. So that's it for those two. Jamming Tower is still like a really good card. It's a very good tech card against Gardevoir. Gardevoir is doing really, really well these days, and it's because it goes under the radar compared to Dragapult again. Like Dragapult is the most popular deck, so it's much more on the front runner of the format again. So people are much more worried about Dragapult than Gardevoir, so Gardevoir kind of gets to go a little bit under the radar. But if people were respecting Gardevoir as much as they were respecting Dragapult, it would be harder for Gardevoir to win as consistently as it currently is again. There's also a lot of really good questions today, so I'm going to go back in chat and like read them up and answer them again, so I'm sure that we got them all answered. And again, thank you so much for all the best wishes. I do feel a lot better now than I did before, so we're definitely on the right track, I think. Do we expect more people taking against Maractus from now on, especially Raging Bolt? No, I don't think so. That's why I think playing Maractus at the moment will be really strong. So as long as people are doing as they are now and not really respecting it, I would just recommend playing Maractus, and that will be very strong. And also, I don't think you necessarily need to play it against Sect either. I think that you're completely fine with just the Maractus. Let them play the Prime Catcher and take a single prize and then go back to Maractus. I think that will still be very strong in those matchups. You have an updated guard list? That was another question. And yeah, just play the Brent list, I think. Or something very close to that will be ideal. Don't you like consistency? This is with cloaks. If you could Jack, which I did in the Dragapult deck. And I think it's fine without. I did add another Brock, so that kind of makes up for it again, I think. But if you want, you can cut the Brock and the research and go back to double Jack. But since I cut the Fezandipiti and the Latias, like the second copy of each, then I figured it would be nice to have Brock as more of a, say, bridge between everything. So you have, easy access to your basics and still access to your evolutions, but not just like the Jack access, which is obviously better sometimes, right? Like after you already got all your basics established already. Let's see. Let's find. Is it enough having towers to respect the Guardy? What else could we tech for it as a Dragapult player? I think it's mostly towers, but if you really want to play Dragapult and you're very worried about the Gardevoir matchup, I think it's mainly about, playing the Dusknoir version. Like the Dusknoir version feels like it has a lot more game into Gardevoir than the no Dusknoir. If you play Dusknoir, you have opportunities to one-hit KO the Gardevoir EX, right? And that's like a pretty huge deal. You can also take a 4-prize turn against Mew and Clefairy, and that's also like really big. So it means you can, pop the Dusknoir into Clefairy on the bench, and then KO the Mew and Clefairy, and you take a 4-prize turn, right? Like that's huge. Like you give away 1 prize to get 2, right? So you're up trading with the Dusknoir you're giving away. So it will be a lot easier to actually close out the game with Dusknoir if you play it. But it adds more variance to your deck again, so if it's actually like net positive for you or not is a different question. But if you're just like really worried about that one matchup, then doing a Dusknoir plus Jamming Tower Bolt is probably your best bet again. Is Garda losing some points with Shaymin? Yeah, I think after Shaymin comes into the format as well, then Gardevoir will be not as strong, because currently just unlimited Screamtail access on anything is just so strong. I think that's like one of the biggest reasons why the deck is just doing so well right now. Like no check on Screamtail is really, really good. It will still be good after Shaymin, of course, because Shaymin will probably not see a ton of play, but it's it will still limit Gardevoir a little bit at least. speaking of Dragapult, how does the Grimmsnarl versus Dragapult matchup look like? It's a little bit Grimmsnarl favored, I would say, I think. Just because you actually have higher damage output than Dragapult with the heavy focus on Munkidori and Frostlass and all. So I think you're a little bit favored as Grimmsnarl. Not like by a ton, depends a little bit on lists and all, but like having an army of Munkidoris against Dragapult is really good. Like, that's definitely nice. Let's see, and then we had a couple list questions as well. Let's see, we had Julius' list from Utrecht we took a look at. So he was playing Gardevoir, and he played basically the same thing. It was a Nest Ball, I think, for a second Screamtail was an option, and then he also had an extra rare candy here as well. Yeah, he kept the Turo for the candy. And I said I was like relatively on board with the Nest Ball cut, but I didn't really like the Turo cut for the candy. I feel like you kind of need to have a Turo just to threaten the possibility of the play. If your opponent knows you don't have it at all, they can be a little bit more greedy when they play against you. So, like, having the option at least seems really good. And we had the question about the new Jellicent, if that's like a scary card. And I think so. I think the new Jellicent is also really good. Like, especially when the Frillish have item lock as well. I think that's also very strong. Like it also blocks tool cards as well. So it's really good at slowing down the evolution decks, because you can't even TM Evo against the Jellyfish. Of course, you can, if you do it immediately, you still can, right? So it doesn't block TM Evo turn 1, which is when you probably will be using it. And then we had a question here about the fall of Gholdengo in the meta, and is the Pult version easier to counter? And if so, is that the reason for it, given that people went all in on that build? I said, I think it has a lot to do with Genesect being so much more prevalent in the meta. Like, when there is more Genesect, then that is like the biggest reason to probably play Genesect is the Gholdengo matchup. Because if you block their A-Spec, they can't really find their energies easily. It makes it very hard to get that initial 1-hit KO on the Dragapult. And you only really need to buy yourself like one turn or so with Phantom Knife before you have a sizable enough lead and damage on the opponent's board to be able to win the prize trade again. And for Gardevoir, I also talked about, the second Screamtail, right? Like, if you're playing the Gardevoir mirror, most of the time you're just kind of hunting down the Munkidoris anyway. So the Screamtail doesn't get knocked out that often. So having the second Screamtail isn't that big of a deal. Like, I'm thinking about less pressure on the stretchers again. We also talked a little bit about the Okidogi deck. This is also like a pretty cute deck as well. I still don't think it does too well against Gardevoir or Dragapult, which seems like an issue, but apparently it did beat 3 out of 5 Gardevoirs it played against. So having a deck that your opponent doesn't really know how to play against is a huge deal as well, I think. So very fun to see this deck, going so far. And we had a Mewtwo feels very consistent, but the power level isn't as high. And I agree with that as well. Mewtwo is like a really nice deck consistency-wise, but power level-wise is not super high compared to some of the other decks. But it does its thing really well. Arguably has a slightly weaker late game to Disruption though, because you can't really afford to play Fizandipity. Like, a lot of the lists are doing it, but I felt like I couldn't do it myself. I'll see if I maybe change my mind on that later, but it's so bad to open Fizandipity because it kind of ruins your whole engine, because you can't draw to 8 anymore with Ariana. How are we fighting against Grimsnell as Gardevoir? I said there, you have to target down whatever they have the least of. So if you can run them out of attackers, you try to do that. And if that doesn't seem like an option, you try to run them out of Monkeydoris. So you just do the normal, say, Screamtail snipe strat there. After Shaman gets released as well, that could also potentially be an option. I also think that you can... Oftentimes they will only get one Frostlass in place. If you take down Frostlass, you could limit their Monkidori damage output quite a bit too. Then we had another decklist question with number 9 in Utrecht. And that was the Roaring Moon deck. I think we concluded that this deck is just like really bad against Raging Bolt. And as long as there's like a lot of Raging Bolt in the format, then this deck is a relatively risky play. But you can donk people with it. You have the Pecorant poison combo, so you can always donk Gardevoir and Dragapult. But I still didn't really like either of those matchups for this deck either. You just get so punished with the gouging against Dragapult, especially if they have Jamming Tower. And Gardevoir has so many single pricers, you don't really have a great way to deal with. I was also surprised the decklist didn't play Monkidori either. Monkidori also seemed like would be a really good fit in here. And Charizard did well in Aichi because Poltner got scared of Psyduck. Since we don't have it, is Charizard doomed to not do well in our Descent Rivals format? And I think it just depends on how much Dragapult it will be, like how popular Dragapult will be. The only thing holding Charizard back is literally Dragapult. But currently the Dragapult lists that are doing well are not even running Dusknoir, so I'm not sure if the Psyduck will actually impact us that much anyway. Like, you see a bunch of Dragapults here, but it's not much Dusknoir, at least there wasn't in Utrecht. So it just depends, right? Like, you had one Dusknoir and a Charizard, but it was a lot of straight Dragapult essentially. So it'll just depend on the total number of Dragapult if Charizard does well or not. Maybe if we have... I wanted to like try a bunch of Monkeydoris and Charizard and see if that could help. I feel like it could. If you go second against Raging Bolt, playing Bolt and have the option, would you item lock it or go with Maractus and track their active as long as it's not Baby Bolt? I find the last option quite interesting. Yeah, we settled on Maractus immediately was probably the play. And just lock them immediately, force them to waste the Prime Catcher, and then go back into Maractus. And ideally, if they only got that one prize out of that, you don't even have to lock them indefinitely. You just need to buy a couple turns, set up, and then go Phantom Dive, Phantom Dive, Phantom Dive, and win the game that way. And yeah, we also looked at this list here. This was like a list from Oscar. A bunch of people played it and did pretty well with it as well. And I also like this list quite a bit. I think if you want to play Charizard Bolt and you want to play heavy focus on Dragapult still as a Dragapult deck, then this is a very good way to go about it. And then it allows you to play Charizard, right? Which normally doesn't help you much against, other Dragapults, but this list added the Rabsca to try to gain some sort of advantage anyway, right? So it's a pretty finicky list. It's pretty cool. Also quad Luminous Energy as well, so that you have easy access to Monkidori and also Dragapult as well, right? And with quad Luminous Energy, you don't really have to invest in any E-search or anything either for, say, finding the Psychic Energy. So they're just like more versatile energies, and can also be used on Charizard as well, of course. And in a pinch, you can even use Psychic on Rabsca if you really want to. That's also a fun extra use of it. Then Jelle also played a pretty interesting Goldengo list. And essentially just has a 10 card combo with like 2/1 2 Pitch It, 1/1 Dustner, 1/1 Charcadet, and the Briar, compared to what you would normally find in the Gholdengo list again. So with this 10 card combo, you can cheat prices essentially. So use the Briar with the Cerulege, right? That's a combo. You can even combo that again with the Dusknoir, and then to find all this stuff, you're using Quick Search, right? To search it all out. And sometimes maybe you don't need the whole combo, you just need to use only the Dusknoir, only the Briar Cerulege, right? To take 2 prizes instead of 1. But sometimes you can do like the whole combo and take a bunch of extra prizes, right? So it was pretty cool, I think, as like an alternative to jamming in a whole Dragapult line in the deck, right? Now, instead, you have a Pitch It line that doesn't help its consistency, but you have some other, high power level options. Still not sure if it's worth it, but it was definitely very interesting to see. Very cool. Oh, I mean, another question here. You seem to be high on Noctowl Pitch It. Are you not scared of the new stadium? I was saying no, not really. New stadium doesn't see that much play, at least currently. So I still feel like playing Pitch It and Noctowl is pretty reasonable. And then Locke said he was leaning into Arch for Portland with like a 17th supporter build. I think that's also really cool. And I also recommended that as a deck if you don't have a ton of time to test, and playing either Bolt or something straightforward like Archaludon heavy supporter would also be, a really nice pick, I think. Especially good for long days with, a lot of stress. Like during the last couple of rounds of an event, the overall level of play goes down so much. And then we had what is the game plan of Pult against Guardy? And the game plan is to just make a 2-prize board state, essentially. So like you give away a single prize early, probably Budew, and then you try to fully evolve everything, so you just have 2 prizers in play. And with your 2 prizers, you force your opponent to attack at least 3 more times to win the game. So you can force like 1 more attack out of the opponent. If you don't do this, your opponent will just go Clefairy, Mew, Munkidori, 1 KO the active with Phantom Dive, and then put 9 on the Draw Cloak, and then the game is kind of over from there. So if you let that happen, I mean playing straight Bolt, then you're probably just losing. So you kind of need to fully evolve everything. It's not a very easy strategy, but you can pull it off sometimes. Then if you have any thoughts on Maractus and Joltik, I think Maractus and Joltik definitely not as good there as it is in other decks, because Joltik just want to end the game immediately. You don't really want to give both players a lot of extra time. And it's much harder for you to take full advantage of the chip damage you're doing with the Maractus as well. Like in the same sense like Dragapult can. Then would it make sense going first against Bolt? And I think it depends a little bit on deck. But if you're playing Dragapult, then it depends how well equipped your deck is to play against Bolt, I think. If you're playing Jamming Towers, especially if you're playing Dusknoir, right? Then I feel like you're very well equipped against it. Because then you can pretty consistently win in just 2 attacks against Bolt again. But with a more straight version, I still think if you have a couple Jamming Towers, I would probably go second just to play it safe and don't allow them the opportunity to get a turn 1 attack. Because a turn 1 attack is pretty devastating against you for sure. Also, if you're playing like really high on supporters as well, then you have much less to do on the first turn unless you find the Puffin again. Does Pult run Bravery Charm? I saw some run Luxur's Cape. I don't get why they would run Luxur's Cape. Luxur's Cape is just like a really good card to make your Dracloaks survive again. So you can put it in Dracloak to avoid snipes from Baby Bolt, and also against the Iron Hands from Joltik. I think those are like the 2 biggest use cases for the Luxury Escape. But it is randomly good on other things as well. Like you can put it on Budew if you really want to push the Budew agenda in some cases, right? Can be good. And this could also be part of your 2-prize board state we talked about, right? you just really want to lock down a board with 2 pricers in play, then Luxury could be that way essentially. So like you can put Luxury on the Monkey Dory. I think that's probably your best bet, ideally, right? And you give away Budu, you fully evolve the Dragapults, and then you Luxcape the Monkey Dory, and then you're all 2 pricers. Even though you have to cheat a little bit with the Luxcape on the Monkey Dory to make it happen. Then we talked a little bit about when to concede in a game as well. As a normal game of Pokemon is 20 to 25 minutes, and you want to see as much of a game as possible, ideally. So you shouldn't concede too early. So if you're in a game 2 situation and you're wondering if you should concede and try your luck on game 3, you can wait until about the 20-minute mark with time left before you have to concede. But if you really want to make sure that the 3rd game finishes, then you shouldn't wait much longer than about 20 minutes left. That's important. Yeah, the next set goes live 8 days from now, so then we get to truly start grinding the new cards. I mean, I guess you have the Marnie already, but you know, not more. Then David said, if I play straight Pult on my opponent sets of both Gardevoirs, am I scooping? Is that wise? No, you should see more of the game. So it depends on how much time is left. Only scoop when you really need to time-wise. Ideally, you always want to see as much of a game as possible if it's not lost already. And the Prepare Like a Pro class is it still worth it, or do you think you need to update it? And I said it's still worth it. It's supposed to be like evergreen and is not designed for any specific format at all. So it's something you can always use as a reference point when you want to prepare for an event and you wonder how you should go about it. That is the class for you. Of the 3 Sarda variants, Pult, Pidgeot, Noctowl, does anyone stand out as the better version for you, or more or less the same? And I said I really like the Pidgeot one more. I'm working currently on a Pidgeot Pult Sarda variant. I'll try to present it next week is the plan if I get happy with the list. And then Dom was getting 1 boss for a 2nd Jamming Tower from the Dragapult list and said that 6 Gust is probably enough. I said, yeah, it's probably fine. And yeah, it gives you the 2nd Jamming Tower, which can be better in some matchups for sure. I just really like having 4 boss. It's a very universally good card. Let's see here. And then we talked a little bit about just practical things at events, like how to not lose games that are not due to game related or variance or skill or anything, but say overdrawing or just not being focused enough, right? And I said that it's important that you take care of yourself as much as you can. So make sure that you're well rested, well fed, well hydrated. All these things are just very important when you're playing tournaments. Don't negate any of this. And if you are wondering what to eat nutrition-wise, try to eat the same thing you're eating in your day-to-day life. So you don't throw your body a curveball and your body doesn't really know what to do, right? Like, it's much better if you're familiar with your environment and your nutrition than not. There's no point in trying to eat something completely new when you already have all these nerves and stress and maybe travel fatigue and whatnot on top of it as well. You can also be distracted if you're too chatty in a match as well. So be friendly and talkative, especially if you want to, of course, right? But you don't need to talk about what people do for work or much outside of the game during the game. Like if you're small talking, you can try to keep it more to the game itself, if anything, and then you can be more friendly and chatty about other things, you know, before and or after the game, I think. And yeah, the Red Bull and Skittles diet is probably not optimal, but if it's what you're used to, then I said, honestly, you could probably still rock it at events as well. But then you still want to change that though. That should still not be your day-to-day diet. Marco said he barely eats, so eats very light for tournaments, and I think that's fair as well, but you should definitely make sure you try to eat something, right? Like anything in healthcare, if you overdo it one way or the other, it will go really bad for you. Like if you drink no water whatsoever for a long period of time, then you will not survive. And if you drink too much water, then you will also not survive. So you always need to strike a good balance. That will be best for your health, your mental, and your game, essentially. And Krellin says he drinks milk before events, and that's why... and that's like working really well for him, because that's what he does at home, and I think that makes perfect sense. Just do whatever, you know, you're doing at home again. And yeah, the tease for next week is essentially that I promised to go over this deck. It's Charizard, Dragapult, Pidgeot, but I want a little bit more time working on it. And then I also want to work on a idea with Terrapagos, Poison, and Burn to reach big numbers and avoid Fezandipity. So I'll work a little bit with those two decks for the next week again. And again, I'm sorry I just had to like compromise everything and run over all the questions like this. Hopefully I got all the most important ones. And again, I'm sorry the recording didn't have the audio, but you know, this was overly all the important things we went over today. So a little bit of a speed run. Maybe it's even appreciated if you know you have more limited time watching this, you know, after the fact anyway. And you got the whole thing just a little bit more compromised than normal. So yeah, enjoy the rest of your day, guys, and I'll catch you all next week. And hopefully I'll have you know, some interesting lists to show off to you then. All right, see you then. Bye bye.